She is a member of the Whole Nine Life seminar team, where she spreads the good food word to hundreds across the country. She is the creator of the blog Fitness is Delicious, a healthy living blog focusing on whole food recipes and fitness tips. She has a Paleo Precision Nutrition certification and enjoys teaching others how to apply the science of paleo living into practical, easy-to-implement strategies. Let's give her a big round of applause.
Thanks. Can everyone hear me okay? Yeah? Okay. So I'm Ashley Fleming. I think if you guys had probably looked at the schedule beforehand, you would have noticed I wasn't on the schedule. I was sort of a last-minute addition, so I'm really glad to be here. Thanks for joining me. As she mentioned, I'm a part of the Whole Nine Life team. So for those of you, is anybody familiar with Whole Nine Life? It starts with food, the Whole 30 program. So I am on the seminar team for them. I also have a fitness and food blog. I am involved with Precision Nutrition, and my husband and I co-own a gym in Bloomington, Indiana, which is where we're from. And on top of all of that, doing the paleo stuff, I work full-time. I work for a medical device industry, or a medical device company called Cook Medical in Bloomington. I also do some wedding planning on the side, so I've got a lot of passions, and I'm a very busy person, and I'm just here to share some of those practical tips for paleo. So this is kind of beginner, a lot of practical stuff, not a lot of science. So hopefully that'll be helpful for you guys. Sorry, I feel like I'm breathing directly into this. Can you hear it? Okay. So starting off, I'm just going to go through some barriers to paleo, talk about work-life balance, meal planning specifically. I have a 4-step meal planning process that we use in our household and that we talk to clients about using as well and have had some really good feedback with. I'm going to go into a couple tips for kids and athletes, which are some specialty groups that we work with, and then just some tips for if you're new to paleo and sort of how to get into that. So starting off, possible barriers to paleo, and I'm sure you guys have probably seen this if you work with clients, or maybe you experienced some of these yourselves when you were getting into paleo. But some internal barriers that we find are people are unsure of the why, what, and how. They're not really sure what paleo is. They don't really understand it. So there's that education factor, a lack of education. They think it's too limiting or too complex. I was actually on a plane last week coming home from San Diego, and I was talking to some guy next to me about Whole Nine Life and paleo, and he's like, isn't that where you cook everything without any spices or any flavorings, and like had this complete just, backwards view of paleo. So I think that that's another thing. Expense. How many people have heard like paleo is too expensive, can't do it? Yeah. Some external barriers, and this is what I really want to focus on in the bulk of today's talk, is family, social circles, and work life. So a lot of people, if you have a wife or a husband or you've got kids, family can play a huge role in terms of how to eat paleo and when you're trying to plan for a family and do some practical implementation. And then social circles. I'm sure everyone knows that your external social circle can be a huge influence in terms of if you're trying to eat paleo or if you're doing a specific plan like a Whole 30 or some sort of other program. And then last but not least, work life. So does everyone work full-time here? Raise your hand if you're full-time. Yeah. Or do something. Even if you're a stay-at-home mom, you're working full-time, right? So what I really want to focus on, though, is meal prep and planning, because I feel like this is really where the rubber meets the road when people are new to paleo or when we're talking to people about paleo. This is the thing that people really struggle with the most, and they can't really get their head around it. So I'm going to focus mostly on this section for today's discussion. So why is this important to us when I talk about work-life balance? So let's say there's 168 hours in a week, and on average, you work 40 hours, probably more for most of us. Less than 50 hours are spent sleeping. Hopefully you're sleeping more than 50 hours. If not, you should head over to one of the sleep sessions so you can get some tips on how to sleep more. And 5+ hours are spent traveling to and from work. Probably more than that if you live in a big city. We live in a small town, so it's pretty short for us. So the point of all of that is to say that there's less and less time for us to cook and to plan and to sort of implement paleo strategies. So let's just talk about some challenges with work. For those of us who work maybe in an office or who have a sales job, or if you're in a gym even, just if you work or have a job. Work travel. I know I travel for work. It can be a stress. It can be a little bit of a challenge sometimes when trying to eat paleo. You've got your hourly schedule. So maybe you're a night shift worker, or maybe your hours are just kind of crazy, or if you've got a really stressful job and you've got to stay late, you can't leave your desk, things like that. Dinners and happy hours. I think some people get really stressed out if they have, I work in the medical industry, so we've got a lot of physician dinners. There's a lot of peer pressure to eat and drink and stay up late and do all sorts of things that are definitely not to paleo. International travel, time change, and airports. Does anybody travel globally for their job? Yeah, so you probably have experienced some of this. It's a little bit of a challenge, getting through all of that. Celebrations, office parties, client lunches. This is just all sort of the things that we experience on a day-to-day life when we're in the office. Lastly, I think this one is really important. Coworkers, peer pressure, and lack of understanding. It kind of goes back to the whole social circle. I know in my office when I first started eating paleo, people were really confused and didn't understand maybe why I wasn't partaking in certain things, or why I was always bringing my food, or always, giving suggestions or helpful tips. So there's just that lack of understanding, I think, amongst most people in normal work environments. So here are just some quick tips. There's a lot of information on this slide. I'm sorry, I put this together last minute, so my thoughts are kind of probably a little bit more rambling than normal. But first is explaining and sharing information with colleagues. What I found is that people are more curious than anything when you start eating a certain way or when you start following a certain protocol. And I feel like if you're just really open and start sharing information, point them to resources, people usually are satisfied with that and they're kind of interested, and you can maybe even get people to jump on board with you. I know in our office a lot of people have started kind of being more cognizant of like lunches that we bring in, and maybe ordering off different menus, and just kind of, I just think they're a little bit more cognizant. I'm sure a lot of you guys, if you're not new to paleo, you probably pack your lunch. I do this every night before. I'm probably a little bit more of a planner than most, but I feel like it's really helpful. Snacks anywhere and everywhere that you can. Doing your research, airport food is huge. For those who travel, I think it's extremely imperative to do your research beforehand. Go online, look at restaurant menus. If you know that you have a set event and you know it's at a restaurant in San Diego, you can go to that site and check it out. Sort of get an idea so that when the time comes to order, you're not the one at the table asking for like 75, modifications to your meal, which can kind of annoy people and make you kind of stand out. So possible fasting before travel. I don't know if anybody has tried this or not. When I went to Europe in January, I was reading the Paleo Manifesto by John Durant, and he has a little section in there on fasting before a major time change travel. So something I haven't tried yet. I was really interested, and I wish I would have read it before I headed over to Europe, because that could have been possibly helpful with jet lag. And then last but not least, you guys, this will be the theme of my entire thing, is planning ahead. This is really imperative, is making sure that you plan ahead. So these are some non-nutritional, just very easy to implement paleo strategies that I've started doing at the office and some other people have done. And this is sort of what we talk about in Whole Nine Life. Make your own convertible stand-up desk. There are some really fancy, very high-tech contraptions for stand-up desks now. I took 2 bins in the cube next to me, set up my laptop, and I sit and stand throughout the day, and that's really helped with my movement and making sure that I'm not slouching all day, helping with posture. Walking outside, even better if you're able to get in a lunchtime workout. Just move. Any type of movement during the day, if you have an office job, is wonderful. I have an activity tracker that I wear. It just helps to remind me to get up and walk, not sit at my desk for 4 hours and stare at the computer screen. And then soft tissue work. I think this is huge. Like I said, we work in the gym, and doing something like using the stick, which is a great tool to roll out your muscles, doing some soft tissue work, using a golf ball for your feet or lacrosse ball. I stand up at my desk, take my shoes off, roll the bottoms of my feet to just get the fascia a little bit more loose, especially if you're a runner or an athlete. You're wearing heels during the day. So those are just some very simple sort of non-nutritional things you can implement. So let's get into the bulk of what I talk about when I say meal planning. I thought this quote was really good. It says, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." And I think that can be applied to a lot of areas in our life. I think people are really quick to jump to the end and the execution. And they're like, I don't want to do all the planning. I just want to get here, right? Like, I don't want to do a Whole30. I don't want to do an elimination diet. I want to jump like straight in and do paleo. But they don't want to like do any of the meal prep. Like, we have people that are like, I want to do paleo tomorrow. And I'm like, well, that's wonderful. But like, let's think about some things that we can do beforehand, and let's do the due diligence and plan and prep so that we're not stressed out and putting our bodies into this crazy, whatever, rat race when it comes to actually doing paleo. So meal planning challenges. Most people think there's not enough time. I have no time to do this on a daily basis. I don't know how you do it. It's just too much. It's too overwhelming. I don't know how to cook. How many people have heard that? Like, I don't know how to cook anything. I can cook like grilled chicken in the kitchen. People are just unsure of how to meal plan. They don't know what a meal plan is. They don't understand how to form one or create one. And these are things that we see at Whole 9 Life seminars when we're talking to people in gyms, and they're just really lost, and they kind of need a place to start. So this is kind of where we start them at. Here are some just really basic meal planning tips. I have a 4-step meal planning process I'm going to share with you guys on the next slide. But one thing we say is, or these are a couple things, get away from traditional meals, right? Don't stick with like breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I have friends who come up to me and they're like, I can't stand eating eggs for breakfast. I have eggs coming out of my ears with paleo. What can I eat? I'm like, anything, right? Eat leftovers that you had from dinner. Eat breakfast pizza that's paleo. Do some sausages. I mean, there's a lot of different things. I've eaten salmon multiple times for breakfast because it's just easy and convenient. So get away from those traditional meals. Make meals in bulk or make partial meals. I'm sure these are really simple things that some of you guys probably already do. Learn to grocery shop or shop at your farmer's market. We live in a very relatively small town. We don't have a Whole Foods. We don't have a Trader Joe's. So I've gotten really good at figuring out what I can get at Kroger and what I can get at my farmer's market, and then sort of where I can fit in those specialty products in between, which kind of brings me to specialty products. So like coconut aminos or sea snacks or anything that's at this conference pretty much we don't have in our town. So we've sort of had to get creative. We'll do trips up to Trader Joe's or Whole Foods like once a month. We'll take our cooler bag and we'll go up for the day and just do a quick trip and get a lot of stuff that we know that we won't have. There's a ton of online grocery services now, and as well as pre-made paleo and Pete's Paleo. I don't know, maybe there are some that are here in the expo. But those are wonderful suggestions for people who don't like to cook or who are very busy, or for new moms. This is a great recommendation for people who are getting ready to have a baby, or they've just got a really hectic lifestyle and they don't want to cook. They can just thaw it and, have a healthy meal that's hot in no time at all. So let's get into this 4-step process. That was supposed to come up one at a time. So first one is discover. So check your schedule. This is what we recommend. At the beginning of the week, let's say your week starts on Monday, Sunday night, sit down and look at your week. Look at your entire week from what you have during the day and what you have during the evening. Do you have social functions? Do your kids have soccer games? Are you going to be doing a business dinner one night? Are you traveling? And from that point, figure out what meals can I make at home and what meals do I need to make out of the house. So what my husband and I will do is we'll say, okay, we're going to make dinner Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We're going to grab Chipotle on Thursday and go out on Friday. We usually don't do Saturday and Sunday just because it just gets kind of complex with travel and whatnot, but it's a good place to start. The second is document. Take inventory of what you have. We have a trainer at the gym who was like laughing because they kept going grocery shopping every week for meat, and what they found was they had like 50 pounds of meat in their deep freezer that they just hadn't used. So take inventory and then go do your grocery shopping. I make a physical list. I go to the grocery. Usually I only end up having to buy a handful of things because we have a CSA that we're a part of. And then last but not least, do it. Come home, cook and prepare, and store it. Do that however you need to in the freezer, in the fridge. I have a ton of containers. I make all of my breakfasts and lunches, and I usually save my dinners to cook because my husband and I enjoy cooking together. But maybe if you work at night and you can do lunches at home, but you have to make your dinners on the go, do that. Do whatever works for you. This is just sort of an outline, a template. Some more meal planning tips and tricks. I have 5 minutes, so I'm going to go quick. Friends with the crock pot. I'm not going to read these. There are tons of on-the-go snacks that you guys have probably heard of. These are wonderful for if you work or on the go. Buy meat when it's on sale. Even better, join a CSA. I know there are a few out here if you're in Texas. We are a part of one in Indiana. It's wonderful. Community Sustained Agriculture, if you don't know what CSA stands for. We get a whole chicken. We get pork, beef, a lot of meat. We bought a deep freezer. Actually, we got one for Christmas. Frozen veggies are okay. This is huge. I don't think I ever buy fresh veggies because I don't know what our schedule is half the time after I've made it, and they're just wonderful and easy to put in the freezer. I already mentioned storage containers and planning again. You can tell I'm a planner. So just some quick tips for families. Some kid-friendly snacks are listed up there. Make a plan for eating outside of the home. This is something that we have a lot of questions about at our seminars is like, how do I deal with my kids going to friends' houses or my kids going to grandparents? Make sure you have a plan, whatever that is. I'm not going to tell you what's right and what's wrong and what you should eat and not eat, but just make sure you have a plan so that when the time comes, everyone's on the same page and knows what they need to do for that situation. Get your kids involved in cooking, choosing meals. Let them choose 2 meals a week or however many that is. Get them involved in cooking. And here are some of my go-to resources when I'm talking with people about, getting their kids involved. Whole 9, Paleo Parents, Everyday Paleo, Non-Paleo. They're all here, so you can try and find them. This slide, I could have given 7 presentations on just this slide and expanded on it. This is what I really enjoy talking about. But athletes, there are a lot of really good resources, paleo resources for athletes. I make everything, and I put it into go shampoo travel containers, and I run with that. I'm a triathlete, marathoner, half marathoner, and I make all my stuff. Ignite Naturals, though, is a really good option for gels that are technically paleo. They have got fig paste as a base. Elite Electrolyte is endorsed by Whole 9, and it's a electrolyte add-in that you add to water, so it doesn't have sugar. It's not like Gatorade. Scratch Labs Pocket Fuel are semi-paleo. That's why I put the asterisk there, but they're good resources as well. And then Elimination Diet. So if you've done a Whole30 and you figure out you can handle rice, maybe corn, those might be some things you want to add in depending on what your tolerance is. And then more go-to resources at the bottom. So if you're new to paleo, how do you begin? So start with a goal, right? Just like any good plan, start with a goal. Determine what that goal is. Is it to lose weight? Is it to just start paleo? Is it to try something new? Is it to get your family on board? And then do an elimination program. Obviously, I work with Whole 9, so I'm I guess biased towards the Whole30, but I think it's really important to do something like that to figure out how your body responds to, dairy, legumes, gluten, all of the allergenic foods that normally paleo people don't eat. Do a pantry clean out. Do this with your family. Go through, eliminate things that are not going to be on whatever plan you've decided to do. Set boundaries and be realistic. I feel like this one is really important because I feel like a lot of people set their expectations really high, which is great, but be realistic in terms of what you can do and what you can handle with your work schedule and your life. And then learn to cook. Like I mentioned, the person who just did chicken, just learn to cook a few things, like a few staple meals, right? Things can be really easy, really simple. And then last but not least, do your best. I think somebody here said, don't let the perfect get in the way of the good. Don't be a perfectionist. As much as you want to be, just do your best. We tell people at our seminars, like, if you eat something that you shouldn't have eaten, don't be too hard on yourself. Start over, or just do the best you can. That's the most important thing. So I think that's it.
Yep,
right
you.
On time?
Yep, right
Yeah?
on time. Got some time for question and answers. Anybody have any questions?